So we're a body soul union, and therefore in my female body that was willed by God, I am therefore feminine in my whole nature. You see, what we do in our society and what we've done is we take subjective standards like sports, growing up playing sports, right, makes you masculine or a tomboy or whatever, and we've projected that onto our definitions of masculinity and femininity. The problem with that approach is that times change, cultures are different, right? It's so subjective, where the reality is I have a female body. That's how God created me. Therefore, in my whole being, I am feminine, period.
Welcome to the Ferris Love Podcast. Here we explore spiritual insights and practical strategies to help you cultivate a family life rooted in beautiful, self-giving love. Join us as we invite experts to share uplifting perspectives and actionable advice for navigating the joys and challenges of modern family dynamics.
Hello, Ferris Love Podcast listeners. Amy here. I wanted to take a moment to share a little PSA for this week's episode. This episode was recorded a while ago with Mary Grace, and we are just now releasing it. So, in case you are confused about why you're not hearing my voice, don't worry. Nothing's changed. This is just an unreleased episode. We thought it would be a great one to wrap up May and transition into June. It is an amazing conversation, and I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back to the Ferris Love Podcast. Today on the show, I'm joined by Samantha Kelley, the founder of Fierce Athlete, a program that empowers female athletes to thrive in their God-given identity and femininity. Today, Sam is going to talk to us about how sports can form not only strong bodies, but also our strong souls, and teaching our children virtue and discipline. We're going to talk about how families can approach athletics and how we can help our daughters and our sons grow in confidence and character through healthy competition and training. So, Sam, thank you so much for being on our show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you have this amazing program called Fierce Athlete that helps women in sports and girls. Can you explain to us, share a little bit with how you kind of founded that program and what inspired you to create it specifically for girls and women?
Sure. Yeah. So my background is a big-time athlete. Was privileged enough to play Division I soccer in college. And yeah, to just be transparent a little bit, I showed up to this big D1 program and didn't know what I was in for, if you will. There's just a lot of hidden toxicity. I think in today's day, it's a little bit more visible with what's going on in the culture, but there's just a very toxic environment. After a reversion in college, I began to mentor female athletes for years on a mental side, but also on a spiritual side. And I encountered just repeated themes of brokenness that we can talk about. And when I looked around, there were a ton of incredible Catholic and Christian athlete organizations out there, but none were female specific. And I did feel like the issues that we deal with as women in general, but as female athletes, were unique. And then the other piece, and admittedly, these organizations weren't willing to talk about some of these hot button issues that I don't lead with. But as a young, impressionable athlete, I wish there had been a resource to help me navigate the craziness of sport. And so, yeah, I'm all about truth and transparency and empowering women to thrive on a physical, mental, and spiritual level.
That's great. And why do you think right now you just mentioned briefly, like when you went to play sports yourself, like why it's so important. What are women kind of facing? Let's just dive right in. What are the challenges and struggles? Obviously, we can see we have answers that are pretty visible, but I'd love to hear your take on that too.
Yeah, I think the fundamental problem happening right now, especially with young people on a great grand scale, like not even sports aside, female athletics aside, I think the biggest issue that young people are dealing with right now is a crisis of identity. So this is why you see a bunch of labels people slap on themselves and they want to distinguish themselves and identify with their sport or with their sexual attraction or with how they look, or there's a whole range of things. And a lot of the issues we see are just symptoms of a lack of understanding of who I authentically am. And so within female sports, there's you see a lot of body image stuff, a lot of promiscuity, eating disorders, same-sex attraction, now this whole transgender wave, a lot of mental health issues. But all of those, some of those are diagnosable, but all of those are a lack of understanding of my fundamental identity before I'm athlete is I'm a daughter of God, period. I've been given my athletic talent or whatever talent our listeners have been given or their kids have been given. Those are all gifts from the Lord, but they don't define you. They're the ways that you honor and worship him. And that distinguisher, especially amidst the vast pressure of today, but also the vast like transparency with social media and media that people are getting the eyes on. It's just, I think it's just crucial to understanding.
Yeah. I'd love to go back to, you mentioned that you had started to mentor athletes.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like, and what were some of the things, you don't have to get too specific, but just that they were coming to you with that, and then you helped in kind of finding solutions for their problems?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I still do. I mean, I
Yeah.
mentor athletes from the middle school all the way up through professional athletes. We have just
Mhm.
some incredible women that I get to work with. Yeah, a lot of I mean, I think on I don't want to say less serious side because
Mhm.
everybody's story is serious, right? But on maybe a less severe side, there's a lot of issue with pressure, issue with caring a lot about what other people think, whether that's
Yeah.
fans or teammates or coaches or parents. We should probably talk about that one. With all the extra pressure, there's some mental health issues. So I've walked with women. I have a master's in psychology, so I'm able to walk with women through some of the identity crises, but just pressure, anxiety, things that they struggle with, or get them further help. Depending on the sport, certain athletes really struggle with body image.
Mm.
I think it's something close to 80% of athletes. It's like 78% of athletes have some level of disordered eating.
Oh, wow.
Now, the diagnosable, like severe conditions, is in the 20 to 30 percentage, but still, that's huge
Yeah.
when it comes to these female athletes who are hyper body focused because that's what you use in sport.
Mm.
So as of late, I've been walking with a few women through eating disorders and
Mhm.
helping them recover. Gosh, there's a whole list.
Yeah.
Within female sports, I think, when I start talking about this, people's minds automatically go to just the same sex attraction and that culture that is a subculture within female athletics. And there's a whole slew
Mhm.
of issues as to why that has evolved, but there's
Mhm.
a lot of really confused women out there. Um, there's also like athletes drink more, there's more promiscuity. And then nowadays, not that I'm well, I've actually dealt with women directly who are struggling with gender identity
Mm.
or just confusion over the sexual difference. But
Mhm.
that's an issue within women's sports on
Yeah.
a grander scale that we're working with too.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd love to, you mentioned about talking with parents. I'm curious if you find that some of these problems, or like, how are the parents involved in maybe like their children and their sports? And are they super involved? Are you finding that, is there a trend with parental involvement versus some of these problems and struggles for these kids?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's the cause. I think
Mhm.
parents on the flip side are a huge proponent to some of these young women getting help. But I'll say this: the number one reason, when you look at the numbers of kids that play sports,
Mhm.
boys and girls, there's this massive drop off in participation around the middle school age,
Mm.
especially with young women. And there's a couple reasons for that, but the biggest reason is kids quit sport is because of the car ride home. And I just like to challenge parents. Most likely, your child is not going to play D1 sports. Maybe, but there's a lot of parents I find that live through their kid
Mm.
that take T-ball more serious than probably is healthy. And these, the car ride home when a dad is ripping into his daughter about her performance is
Mm.
extremely damaging to her confidence. Now,
Mhm.
this is all the negative side. On the
Yeah, yeah,
positive
yeah.
side,
I was
I
like,
mean, I'm so close with my dad because we spent hours and hours and hours in a car together going to soccer tournaments. Like, it's why we're close. It's incredible. He had a great balance of pushing me when I need, but just support. Like, my parents would sit separate from other parents because they just didn't want the drama.
yeah.
But I think it's an important point, right? It has to be balanced. You have to make sure, your kid is playing the sport because they love it. You
Mm.
can encourage, obviously, certain points to commitment because I think kids struggle with that these days. But,
Mhm.
it leads later in life. Like I work mostly with middle or high school, college.
Yeah.
But I even was talking to a coach and she's just like, and she's coached top D1. And she's just like, a lot of my kids think that if they don't play well, their dad's not going to love them, which
Mm.
isn't true. But there's this conditional love perception that can be
Mhm.
created by parents when somebody gets more attention based off performance rather than effort,
Yeah.
or, the parents really down when they lose, or so it becomes kind of like a god, if you will. And it just can create a whole slew of parent wounds and things like
Yeah.
that. So that is a layer. I'm sorry to say it, but we got to call it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and kids, I mean, they look for parent approval, and especially with things that are competitive and or of like of a skill-based nature. Like we want that affirmation from our parents. And so yeah, I can see where that could be a big piece of the struggle. Your program, Fierce Athlete, works with women for their identity, but also like just to embrace their femininity. How does that look in what you do? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is crucial.
I say this because growing up, I would be considered a tomboy.
Oh,
You
same.
had that phrase tomboy. And then if you were to look at that nowadays, you'd be like, oh, a lot of identity stuff nowadays. But I say it because it's like, I still feel like I'm very feminine, but I'm more like I have 5 brothers and, just,
Yeah.
you're more on that side of the,
Yeah.
so like,
yeah.
how does
No.
that look in your sense?
Same. Yeah. I mean, I grew up playing tackle football with all boys in the neighborhood, but that led to a kind of a root lie in my life of, I'm not feminine because I'm 6 feet tall and I have big muscles and I love sports. And, I'm running to class in college in sweats because I'm in between workouts and all these girls are curling their hair and wearing makeup. And I didn't have time for that, and of course I love to throw on a good dress now. But there's this root lie. And we have to be so careful with our language these days because of this confusion surrounding the sexual difference. I've been advised don't even use the word gender because what we believe as gender is the sexual difference, but society's hijacked the word. So let's talk sexual difference, right? There's a lot of confusion, but we have to be really careful with our language. But what we know so a lot of what I teach in Fierce is rooted in theology of the body, which is John Paul II's teaching on human anthropology, human sexuality, the sexual difference. So I basically took that teaching and applied it to athletics because there's a lot of those themes I've already talked about. So our nature as human persons is that we're body and soul. That's our nature. And you can't separate them, right? Those are separated at death. Now, today, people are thinking, okay, I can be this body and I can be this interior soul or whatever. But that's a culture of death, right? Right. There's a connection there. That's just a little side
on that for a second.
Side note. But okay, so we're a body soul union, and therefore, like in my female body that was willed by God, I am therefore feminine in my whole nature. You see, what we do in our society and what we've done is we take subjective standards like sports, growing up playing sports, right, makes you masculine or a tomboy or whatever. And we've projected that onto our definitions of masculinity and femininity. The problem with that approach is that times change, cultures are different, right? It's so subjective, where the reality is I have a female body. That's how God created me. Therefore, in my whole being, I am feminine, period. Now I can seek to reject that. My body reveals a lot of my femininity is rooted in my receptivity. This is why women, when you watch them play sports, are more team oriented. There's it's secular example, but it's how we're exercising our femininity in sport. Men, it's a little bit more individualistic. Their height of masculinity revealed through their body is sacrifice. I know I'm throwing these like bombs at you. We don't have a lot of time. So just like hit pause and you can think about that for a second. But yeah, it's like I am opening my, receptive to suffering, receptive to the Lord, receptive to other when I'm working out or when I'm playing sport. That is me exercising my femininity. And John Paul II says it's almost like so rooted in us. I mean, of course it is, that we can't even deny it. I mean, I think there are plenty of examples of female athletes that seek to close off and seek to deny their inherent femininity. But what I say is it is you. It is part of you. And so there's various expressions of it kind of within that context of what's revealed in our maternal nature, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, just sit on that for a second. No, I love that too, because that then puts in the argument or just the context of like, yeah, feeling like a tomboy because it's I'm more aggressive in this sport, but it's not necessarily because of that. It's because it's of my nature to be feminine anyways. It's still a part of my nature.
Can I make a note here? It's one of my favorite things, just because of our Lady and your patron. And I like to say Our Lady's the fiercest woman that ever lived. We talk about her humility and her, openness and her receptivity, but it's her humility that actually makes the devil afraid of her. Like she crushes the head of Satan.
Yeah.
Like she's fierce. And so and we know this as moms, it's like Mama Bear comes out. Like there is a side of us that is intense or competitive or driven by our love. And that's feminine. Like that's powerful. But there's also this other side of us that is tender and nurturing and other oriented, and that's also powerful. And so it's all encompassing, if you will. But I love to just give Our Lady a shout out in that regard too.
Yeah, definitely. We love Our Lady. Mary, Mother, Praise Love. Yes. So let's just kind of go back to, just the idea of young people and what sports can do for young people. What kind of virtues can athletics uniquely develop in, let's say, our children?
I think that, and you could maybe say this for music too, but I think sport is one of the purest things we have left. And I say that because for an hour and a half practice or 2-hour practice that your kid has or a 2-hour game, they can't be on their phone. They can't be watching TV. They can't be looking at a screen. And so I think it's on just a cultural level, I think it's allowing for just like a purity of interaction, a purity of focus, which is counteracting some of those other trends. On the women's side, I think it's like 80 something percent. Maybe it's higher than that. I don't remember. It's above 80%. It might be 90. For some reason, the 92 is in my mind too, but I don't know. We'll say over 80% of C level, so CEOs, CFOs, COOs, C-level female executives are former college athletes or former intense athletes. And I say that, not that it's about that, but I say that because sport teaches you so many virtues that you don't get elsewhere. I mean, let's talk perseverance. Let's talk working with others different from you. Let's talk, communication. I think I'll say this in a blunt way, but I mean it in a soft way. I think kids are soft these days. I think we can coddle our kids, things like that. Not everybody should get a trophy. We can talk about that too. You got to learn to lose. And so it teaches you a certain level of like resilience and toughness and to lose with grace and to win with grace. And all of these, characters or virtues, gosh, they're so transferable to other areas of your life, but even after sport to so many.
Yeah. And do you think that every child has that ability, has an athletic ability in them? Or do you think, how can parents, let's say they have a couple kids, they maybe are just considering about starting sports. Like, how do they go about even discerning whether or not their child's ready for it? Or what do you think about that? Should everyone play sports? What are your thoughts?
I think there's an opportunity for everybody to play sports. I mean, if your kid is like, I don't, you see them artistic or it's like follow their gifting. But I do think, especially at a young age, it's really healthy to get a kid on a running team or a soccer team or, and then I do believe like my athleticism is a God-given gift. Like I can crumple up a piece of paper and toss it across the room and shoot it in a basket. Like I just have this hand-eye coordination. It's a gift from God. Like it ultimately is, which that in addition to a ton of hard work. Like I grinded for years to be able to play at the level I did. And so it's a both and, I would say. Like there is definitely a level of coordination given to us by the Lord, but athletics is also so vast.
Yeah.
Like you have some, like I'm a 6 feet tall woman. I'm not 5'2" and lean and can go run a long distance very fast, right? So there's different even giftings within athleticism. But I will say, I think just like anything, whether that's studying or music or just learning a skill, you have to practice. Like in areas where I might not be the most gifted, I can certainly make up a lot of that gapping with just hard work,
Yeah.
Now there's a balance there, right? I think kids specialize in a specific sport way too early. It's kind of the thing now where, by the time your kid is 8, he's got to have a private coach. And my coworker coached Division I basketball, and she is all for athletes playing multiple sports, at least through middle school. Middle school, you can start specializing, but otherwise your kid's going to get burned out, right? It's good to be able, I was a 3-sport varsity athlete through high school. I had to drop one mid-high school because soccer was an all-year thing, but that all aided my eventual ability to focus in college on the one sport. So, yeah.
Well, and it requires you to work hard. I mean, that's another virtue, like work hard and virtue in that, and building that virtue and helping, parents help their children see the value of it, but also probably not overemphasizing one thing or the other. You mentioned briefly about competition as one of the good aspects of sport. how do you see competition kind of allowing children to kind of face young adults too, not just children, but like to face the world that they're in, and like losing? You mentioned that not everyone deserves a trophy. Like, how does that help kind of with competitive sports? How does that help them face the real world in the end?
Yeah, I think there's this tension, right? It's like, can I be both competitive and holy? And I think we have to define what true competition is. If a lot of the world, I would say, views competition as I need to rip you down or step on top of you in order to get ahead. That's not true competition. That's dominance. I don't think that's virtuous. I view true competition as, and I think it's transferable to other areas of life, as like, for example, if I'm going to go play a game, let's say it's a soccer game. The game that we won 10-0 and blew the other team out was way less fun than the game that was like neck and neck, even if we lost. And why is that? It's because I had to push myself. I had to raise my game. I had to, exhaust myself, be the best I could be in order to try to win. So it stretched me. So if we view competition as, I hope that that other person shows up with their A game and I'm going to bring mine and we're going to make each other better. That's true, like, I think, holy competition. So, I mean, that could be the spiritual life. Like, my coworkers now are the most impressive women I've ever met. And for a lot of women or a less secure woman, like, I would be threatened by that, right? But no, it's like, I want to be challenged every day to be competitive in the right way. Like, I see you living an ordered life. I see you working out really hard. I see you working really hard. I see you praying regularly. I see you sacrificing. That inspires me to be a holier individual, to strive for sainthood. And so, yeah, I think that aspect of competition is really, really healthy and really good.
And I think even with your point, I love that reflection that you made about the idea that you want the best for the other person as well in the midst of the competition. And I think we can even transfer that to friendships or to, like you said, your coworkers. Like, I was always told, I mean, you want to try to like seek out the best in people. And so like, because then in the end, it's helping you to be your best because you want to mimic that and imitate that as well. So that's excellent. I want to kind of go a little bit deeper now into women's sports in general, because I think we do have, parents who have girls that are starting sports. And I'm sure that there are kind of a lot of fears of like what's going on with identity, with these, would you say the sexual differences? And I'd love to hear your take on just kind of how parents can help their daughters to, I guess, with all transgenders and everything like that, it's just very prevalent nowadays. And, the fears of, okay, well, my daughter have to compete against a biological man or, those things. So yeah, if you have any insights into that could help our parents kind of just feel more confident in allowing their daughters to try different sports, try different things, and then maybe even finding the confidence and the courage to stand up for the truth.
Yeah. So I would love to start a little bit like zoomed out, if you will, because I think within the church sometimes there is people feel threatened by sport. I'm just going to call it out. For example, what's Sunday for? We think mass. A lot of people think football, right?
Yeah.
And they say, well, sport is bad then, or, it's become the new God, or, okay, there are elements of that. Absolutely. However, it's like, I think the benefit of sport far outweighs some of these temptations. And my heart is, okay, rather than writing that off, like, why not be evangelists within the field of sport? Like, if people aren't coming into the church and they're spending their Sunday on a soccer field, why aren't we making sure we get to mass 100%. I never missed mass growing up at tournaments and all that. It was always a priority, but that's the beauty of our faith. There's usually a couple mass times, but why aren't we inviting others into that? We're at a tournament with our kid. Why aren't we inviting others to mass? I did the same thing in college. So it's an opportunity to evangelize. I will just preface with that. It's not a threat. However, as parents, of course, you should be, discerning when it comes to your kid playing sports. So I think there's a couple things to consider. One, who's coaching your kid? I think when we talk about, okay, a coach being okay with playing against a boy or a man, that says something about the coach. When we talk about, as you get older, girls struggling with same-sex attraction, there's a lot of coaches that struggle with that, and they're okay with it. Okay, that tone is set by a coach. even how your kid is treated on the team. Is it about the coach, or is it about your kid and making them a better person? So filtering coaching, I think, is huge, especially if you can find somebody who's family oriented, who understands that, you have commitments in terms of faith. Now I am all about commitment to sport, work around, like you have to commit to both. I think that's a big thing. I think when your daughters get older, as they start approaching that middle school age, for me, it was college, but now things are getting younger and younger. We do need to have conversations with our kids about same sex attraction and about the disorder there. And it's with young women, it's usually just a desire for affection, sometimes codependency, things like that are causing or underlying wounds, getting preyed upon, all these things. Just making, like, I stepped into college and was like, oh my goodness, I didn't even really know this was a thing. But now it's a thing even younger, right? You're looking at 20 to 30% of female athletes struggling. And so, but for me, like, don't be discerning, but just because something has a problem doesn't mean you run away from it. It means you're equipped, you know the truth, you're willing to be a witness, you're solid in who you are, and you're the influencer in that regard. I think in terms of having to worry about playing against boys, I don't want to say it's uncommon. I'd say it's becoming less common. Recent Supreme Court cases being heard, a precedent being set. It's still kind of on the state level, that battle in some states. But I have a no tolerance policy when it comes to that. If you find out that your kid and your kid's team is going to play and the coach doesn't pull, you pull your daughter. I'm sorry, like, boycott. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth the injury, but also just the tolerance of it, So
do you think there's always another option? Because sometimes I feel like maybe sometimes parents fear, oh, my child won't play this level of sport if they don't compete at this, Do you think there's always another option, or sometimes is that just the sacrifice?
You mean another option for them to play?
Right. To, like, compete. Let's say they're competing at a certain level and there happens to be, like, a boy on the other team or something like that, or playing on their team. Sometimes the fear might be, oh, well, my child won't be able to play at this level at a different club or whatever. Do you think there's always a different option?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that with that issue, with the same sex attraction stuff, it's kind of everywhere. And again, I think it's about education. I think you can find teams, though, that have really healthy culture, and that might require you to drive a little bit further. It might require a different level. It might require switching a coach or having a conversation about, I mean, it's a great opportunity, right, to evangelize your child. And I've seen women really rooted in their faith step into those circumstances and be a light, love, but not tolerate, and stand up for themselves. And really, like, I think joy is contagious and everybody wants to be loved. And when you find somebody who's confident, who's rooted in her faith, like, other people are going to say, why doesn't she have to do this? And she's still satisfied. I think that's tremendously powerful for our young women.
Yeah. And it's like that question of, well, how is the culture going to change if we're not in the culture? So, kind of equipping your children and having those conversations with your children, which I think is so important. So what are some signs that, like, the sports that your children are in are strengthening your child's character? And what are some signs that you're probably like, well, maybe we should reassess?
Gosh. I mean, yeah, strengthening character, I would say, there's a level of commitment. There's a level of an openness, a willingness, and excitement to go to practice, even if sometimes it's hard, playing on your own. Like, I was always out not always, a lot of times, I was, like, out in the yard playing, playing soccer, practicing my skill. I was committed to a goal. And there were times when I was at the top of a certain level and I was scared to go to the next level. And that's really the only times my dad pushed me, because he saw my potential. In an inviting, I'm going to walk alongside you way, but in, like, hey, you need to try out for this next level team. And I remember crying for, like, the first month of the new team practice, but that one move is what allowed me to, like, play D1 soccer. So, it was like, I knew it was in love, but yeah, I think letting out of energy, like, there's some really good sides. Like, kids need to play. They need to play. Negative teams have cultures, and in a good way, right? Especially if your kid's in a certain type of school or they're homeschooled, or, sport it's diverse, and that's a good thing, right? Because it actually allows you to interact with other kids and things. But if you notice, like, some bad behaviors rubbing off in your kid, like, are they swearing? Are they being, I don't know, extra clingy to another woman? That's, can be a little bit of a sign. Are they having outbursts? Are they not dealing with competition well? Are they like really discouraged or angry when they lose? Again, those are just pivot moments. They're teachable moments. It's good to probably ask why. Is it because the coach is modeling this behavior? Is it because I'm modeling this behavior? Is it but those are just probably some general things to kind of to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, when you definitely provided some awesome, like, I didn't even think about the coach aspect. Of course, you're like, I think a lot of people just rely on, like, they think, okay, the coach is the master, they know what they're doing, then they don't even probably think about that that character side of it, and the kind of influence that they have on the whole team. I never even considered that.
Oh, it's the most influential
Yeah,
piece, I think.
yeah,
I mean, outside of a parent, a coach is the most influential person in your kid's life. Like even more so than teachers. If you have a serious athlete, like if
yeah.
I think back, the most influential people in my life besides my parents were my coaches. For
Mhm,
better or for worse, I had some really great coaches the majority of the time
mhm,
that formed me, pushed me, taught me virtue. I knew they cared about me. It wasn't just about them.
mm.
But I also had some rough things that I had to persevere through and learned about. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a crucial one.
And you mentioned when you took that chance with that other team, like your dad was like, "I think you should do this to push yourself a little more." It was a hard thing for you to do, but you had trusted your dad. So, what were some of the things that your dad did, maybe that parents can do to help develop that trust amongst the child and the parent, that parent trust relationship?
Yeah, I think something that my parents always did really well is they had a sober view of my athleticism.
Mm,
And what I mean by that is I think sometimes and I talk to coaches these days and the hardest part of their job is dealing with parents.
mm,
Cuz everybody thinks their kid's the best and their kid should be the star and their kid should get all the playing time.
mm,
I get it. Like you love your kid. And my parents were both athletes, but they saw and we talked about and I wanted because I trusted them. It was never yelled. It was never there was constructive like what did you think and where could I improve and with that, I think my dad realized like I was playing at a level that was way above everybody else on the team and I needed a new place to explore that.
mm.
And so that's where he asked around and we made that, it was basically I was going from like travel to
Yeah.
club level and then beyond there, you kind of shift club teams and different levels and but there was always this kind of a sober view which I would offer as like I would imagine I'm not a parent, but I see this in my niece and nephew and in all my spiritual children. You know their gifts and talents, you know how they differ, you know their temperaments, and they're amazing. They're a God-given gift,
Mhm,
but they also have different strengths and weaknesses, and that's good.
mhm.
It's like we're all part of the body of Christ. It's like can't all be the same player on a team. And so yeah, looking at it through that lens and
Mhm.
helping your kid improve and
Yeah,
yeah.
that's excellent. And just kind of to round out the conversation, going back to identity, how can parents help strengthen their children's God given identity? Whether they're girls playing sports, whether they're young men playing, in this kind of intense reality of some sports sometimes. How can parents start with that affirmation that they are children of God?
Yeah, I mean, saying that
Yeah.
right? It's like your worth's not based off whether you scored today or even got playing time. You're just loved. I think we can model I had one woman say to me whose parents broken family home, hyper involved in her sport career, and she just said to me like I've never known unconditional love. Like love in my home was always conditional,
Mm,
which like just completely annihilated my heart,
yeah.
because that's not the love of our Lord and that's not the love we should be modeling as parents. And so I think, win or lose, being that encouragement to your kid, encourage effort, not result. I think is a really just like good principle. Of course, like if they win, get excited. And if they lose, give them a hug and be on the journey, the highs and the lows with them.
Mm,
But as a parent, make sure your love's unconditional and the support's unconditional. You're showing up as much as you can to like, there's nothing that means more to an athlete when you show up to their game. It's special. So being supportive in that regard, but always coming back to all of our identity, right? Is beloved son or beloved daughter. And that just is. It's just fact.
mhm. That's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights. We would love to know more about Fierce Athlete. Can you share with us your program and what else you do through that?
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because I feel like I offered a lot, but it's like there's so much more. So we have a bunch of resources. So yeah, so what Fierce does, you can go to fierce.org. We have Fierce Athlete, which is for current athletes. We have Fierce Coach, which is for current coaches,
Nice.
and then we have Fierce Forever, which is for quote unquote former athletes.
Once an athlete, always an athlete.
Thank you. I always have former in quotations for that is the tagline. So get it. So yeah, so go onto the Fierce website. We have a bunch of resources there. Podcasts. We're relaunching a video podcast. I have a book for young women. And then like if you're on a team, your kid's on a team, you're part of a school. Where I spend the majority of my time is I travel the country. I travel to schools and I give talks. I put on clinics, which is like a marriage between a retreat and a strength and conditioning clinic.
Oh, cool.
So it's actually like, "Hey, I'm teaching you this, but now we're going to go apply it," or retreats, things like that. So all of that, we have a bunch of resources and things is on that website. And yeah, if there's ever anything that we can do for you as a parent, Fierce Parent has already been branded. It's coming
Yeah.
eventually, but I think our resources are geared towards the athlete, but super applicable to parents as well. All that's there. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, those will all be in the show notes. So perfect. Thank you
Great.
so much for sharing all this, and we look forward to kind of seeing what you guys do more for the future of sports and for women. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Ferris Love podcast. In 2026, we continue to share the devotion to Mary, Mother of Ferris Love. If you like what you heard on today's show, please visit our website at ferrislovefamilyproject.org, where you can find additional podcasts and other resources for families. Be sure to also check us out on social media at Ferris Love Project. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on an episode soon.